So what I have found to be the easiest way to paint is you go to layout, you select the component that you would like to paint, you come back to texture paint, okay, and now at this point we can draw on it directly if we wanted to, which it's not. Aha, here we go. Yeah, it didn't actually work like I thought it did. All right, perfect. This is good. So here, I thought it got all of them, but it did not. So you can see here, I haven't textured these components. So you'll notice that there's no texture. I'm under the texture tab. This one has a texture, but no texture on the rest of these. So I thought it was texture, but it is not. So what we'll do is, just like we did for this one, we'll come in here and we'll select this material that we made, which was this red.png. So this creates a new material. And so now one at a time, we'll go through and we'll say, use this material, use this material, use this material, et cetera, et cetera. So we're going to do this for every component. Okay. Now that everything's been materialed, now when we go to texture paint, if I draw on this, you'll see that it's now texturing the vehicle. So now let's say that we want to actually texture this in a little bit more of a systematic way. So if we go to layout, as mentioned before, you can select the component that you would like to texture. So let's start with, let's say, this outboard flaperon. We come back to texture paint. There's a couple different methods. One of them is to directly draw on it. So as I said before, you can actually draw on it. And because we've selected that component, I can't draw on anything else. I can only draw on this flaperon. And so you can see that now it's becoming textured here. Again, we can draw on the bottom, but that's kind of a slow way to do it. So an easier way is to take this paint bucket, so it's fill, then you just simply click on the item with the color that you want. So let's say we want to do a blue color here. So we'll click on it, and you can see that for the most part, it's completely filled in the component color. Now let's say we want to do the next flaperon, the opposite one. So we go back to layout, we select that component, come back to texture paint, click on our fill, and we once again click it. Now we've got texture on that side. Then we just keep repeating this. So we'll do the next component, texture paint. Let's say we want to do a different color this time, going for auburn, orange, or blue. We'll do orange there. Back to layout, select again, texture paint, orange, fill, click. I won't do everything, but I'll go ahead and do the control surfaces. We'll do the elevator, texture paint, click. Then we can do the rudder. So we'll do layout, select the rudder, texture paint, click. This time I'll do blue. So I want to use the blue that's here. So we'll click on the color, click on the dropper, select that blue. Now we're blue. And then lastly, I guess I'll go ahead and do the propeller. So layout, click the propeller, texture paint. This time I want to do black. So we'll do a black color. We'll click that. So you can see here that you may notice it didn't do it perfectly, right? It actually missed a couple of pieces. And this has to do with that UV mesh, those settings I mentioned before. So you'll see that we've actually colored some of the tires. We've also colored some of this, and we didn't click on those. And that's because we have a bit of overlap in the meshing on some components. So you could definitely spend some time fixing that if you really wanted to by going back into the UV editing, and then under UV, Smart UV Project, you could tweak these settings if you wanted to basically improve that. But again, it's pretty minor stuff. I tend to just kind of let it be. But it's something that you could do if it became like an issue where you saw that things were getting really badly colored. Okay. One other thing that is worth noting in terms of texturing is let's say, for example, I wanted to draw on these tires. So I will go to layout. I will click on the fixed components, come back to texture paint. Let's say I wanted to do maybe a cowling type design. So one of the pretty nice features that they have is you can go into stroke up here, which is hidden. So you have to kind of expand this. So stroke, right now it's on space. I really think that airbrush is probably one of the best ways to do it. You want to make this rate nearly 0. So just a very, very low rate. And what that does is it basically makes it like a nice smooth drawing. So we'll go into draw and let's get a black color for the tire rubber. And you'll see that we should be able to now draw on this, although it doesn't seem like we are drawing on it, probably because I have selected the wrong component. I could put it, yes, I see. Let me get rid of, yeah, I see what's happened. I accidentally dropped in the gear, which was not necessary. So I'm going to go ahead and delete those. So I'm going to go to a side view, going to just draw on this, and you'll see that it's basically just painting this color on here pretty nicely. But what you can see also is that, this isn't a great method of doing it. It looks pretty dirty. So one thing we can do is if we go into the stroke, and we change our stroke method to line. Now what I can do is I can clean this edge up a little bit. So I'll change this color back to like a whitish color. And so using these grid lines, we can actually just click and drag and let go. And you'll see we've got a nice straight line here that we can draw. So this is pretty helpful for if you're wanting to clean up a sharp edge, let's say. So again, you can kind of line it up using this viewpoint tool. And let's say I want to start here and I want to make this straight across the whole fuselage or the whole tire. So we'll just do that. And that kind of helps you clean up some edges. So if you wanted to do fuselage stripes or things of that nature, it's pretty helpful to do. So for example, if I wanted to add a nice blue stripe here, I could start here, take it to the tail, and you'll get a nice straight stripe. Unfortunately, it is on one side, so you'll have to repeat this on the other side. But the good thing is you have these grid lines, so as long as you can remember, which grid line you used, you can basically get some nice stripes along the vehicle if you'd like to do so. So just another kind of tool that could be helpful for painting the vehicle. And again, painting is one of those things you could spend as much time painting this and doing it upright and making it look really good as you want to. It's completely up to the user. But that's kind of the gist of how you can paint on the vehicle in general. So any questions about the painting side before we get into animation?
No, I think that's it. I think so. It sounds to me like for some of this, it would, if you want to say, let's say that we wanted the wheels to be a different color, it might be easiest just to import the wheels separately, right? And then color those as a separate component.
That's correct. Yeah. So, and there's nothing wrong with doing that. Like these struts, for example, I could have done them separately and then just you can drop the paint bucket on it. And that's a really nice way to just kind of get the whole thing, like how easy it was to do the flaperons and that, that stuff. So, yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. Yep. Sounds good. Otherwise, the texture thing's a little strange, but I think it's a matter of just going in and doing it, and it should.
Yeah, it's kind of like an unwrapped texture of what's on the vehicle, right? And so this file is actually pretty important because you end up using it in X-Plane 2. And so we'll talk about that. And so once you're done making your edits to your texture, you do need to make sure, come to image. So once you're happy, you'd say image, save as, and then you would basically save this texture in its final state. So that's pretty important. So once you save, I'm sorry, yes. Yeah.
Sorry, no, what I was going to say is I understand where the red, so the red.png before was a blank canvas, you did this to it, and that's how it got all the shapes on it, so.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay.
And this gets used by X-Plane ultimately. So yeah.
Gotcha. Excellent.
So
Excellent.
So now that let's say we're happy with the paint, the vehicle looks good. We come back to layout. Now we're talking about animation. So now we actually want to start moving things. So let's start with something simple. Let's just do, I'll just do one control surface and a propeller because that's all you really need to know. If you know how to do a control surface and you know how to do a propeller, you can do anything else you want. So let's start with, let's say, the elevator. So what we're going to do is we're going to start with Shift A. It'll pull up this menu here. We're going to click armature. And what it's going to do is it's going to spawn in this kind of pylon looking thing here. I believe you can also get that from animation. There might be another way to get that to spawn in, but I've been typically using Shift A. Yeah, I'm sorry, modeling, armature. Let's see here. Modeling, add, maybe, or no. Perhaps it is armature. I'm not really sure, but I always just do the Shift A. It pulls up this. I click armature. So that's kind of how I get this to show up. So the first thing we're going to do is I actually want to hide everything else because it's just going to get in my way. So over here, there's a nice feature where there's this kind of eyeball looking thing. I'm going to hide everything except the elevator. So I just want to focus on the elevator for right now. And so now that I've done that, I'm going to go to the side and kind of like you would do in maybe SolidWorks or a CAD program, the first thing you want to do is get it close. So I'm going to click G. I'm going to click on it, click G. So now I'm in move mode. I'm going to just kind of place it about on the hinge line in this axis. Then we're going to go to a top view or another 90-degree view, center this up, and I want to line this up using G. I'm going to kind of line this up on the hinge axis. Okay, so now let's check again. I'm going to kind of zoom in here and I'm trying to get this to look appropriately or approximately on the hinge axis. So that's pretty good there. Not too bad. And so one more thing to kind of help this, because these are kind of in the way, is you can click on this wireframe sort of thing, viewport shading, and now you'll see we get this nice wire view. And now we can really hone in on where that hinge point is. So I'm going to put that right there. I'm going to go to a front view. Looks good in this axis. I'm going to go to a top view. Looks good in that axis. So now let's go to this front view. And so right now it's pointing in the wrong direction. So all we need to do is